Hey everyone, welcome back to Third Shot Podcast. We hope you've been enjoying the holiday season with your loved ones and your family and friends. We've got another great episode coming up, but before we get into it, please go and visit us on our social media, Instagram and Facebook at Third Shot Podcast. You can also find us on X at Third Shot Pod or check out our website, thirdshotpodcast.com, where you can catch up on all of our latest episodes, our blog posts, and our special Third Shot apparel.
Yes. Don't
Yeah.
forget the apparel. I'm wearing some right now.
Yes, it's beautiful.
And I'm
Get
going
a
to
little
drink from some right now, too. Our third shot.
cheers.
Yeah. Love the glasses. I remember when Mo from Hot Stuff Pickleball created those shot glasses for us. And I was like, that is the coolest thing.
Yep. And that beautiful artwork. I need to get all of my studio stuff switched over so I can have my things up on these blank walls too.
Well, you are bouncing around different places,
I
doing
am,
you
yeah.
have a mobile studio.
It's a busy time. Yeah, I should try to do like a pop-up thing where I've just got like the backdrop. I can just pull it down like one
Yeah.
of those projector screens.
Yes. Or I don't personally like the digital backgrounds that you get in Zoom and stuff like that
Oh
because if you
yeah,
move a little bit, you kind of like disappear. But
that's funny.
we should have a third shot digital background just so in case.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I didn't realize that you can create your own.
Yeah, you can create your own if you have the artwork.
Mm,
We do, right? From
yeah,
Canva, we just throw it in there. Yeah, we could have our own background.
something to work on.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Like we have our third shot logo. Isn't it crazy that like you introduced me to the game 2 years ago and how much it's changed our lives in the past 2 years?
Yes, I think it comes with this time of the year. It's the end of it. We're wrapping it up, so you kind of reflect on everything that's happened. And when I think about Third Shot and where it started and how far we've come, it's amazing to me because the amount of people that we've gotten to meet, what we've done with it, I think, and built upon it. And we are approaching our 100th episode, which I
Wow.
don't think a lot of podcasts can say.
I know that a lot of podcasts can't say they made it to 100 episodes. I think most podcasts, because I do other podcasts and I was part of a podcast network for a little while. So I did a lot of research on podcasting when we decided to start this.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, most podcasts don't make it to double digits. Like
Really?
they give up before 10 happens.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
to make it to triple digits, that is an accomplishment. Like, do you remember the conversation when I said, "Hey, do you wanna do a podcast?"
Yes. I think I was like, are you serious?
Was it okay, so we auditioned for the reality show, right? Big deal.
Hmm.
And that's when we kinda got our podcast juices flowing and we started having conversation about it. Did we have the conversation before we actually filmed, or did we do it after we filmed?
It was before, I think when we were prepping for like the interview process of it,
Uh-huh.
I think that's when you had the idea of like, hey, if this doesn't pan out, like we could always turn it into a podcast afterward. And even if it does pan out, like we can kind of use it as like momentum to kind of get things going because it was perfect timing because did get to meet a lot of different characters
Yeah.
in that process of interviewing for the reality TV show. And I think that also kind of helped with the creativity piece of it of like, there's a lot of fun people involved in pickleball and we can have them on our show.
Absolutely. Who do you think stood out to you from all the people we met at the, audition and on the show? Who stood out
Oh,
to you that kind of made an impression?
for the audition, it was for sure that like American cowboy guy, remember? And he like
Yes,
never wore a shirt and he was
yes,
like very eccentric in his attire. Like I think he just wore spandex tights and a cowboy hat during one of the recordings. And I ended up seeing him in New Orleans randomly. Like there was no pickleball going on. I was there for vacation and walking down Bourbon Street, I was like, that's the guy. I could not believe it.
When you sent me a picture of him from Bourbon Street, and I go, "No," and he's wearing the same outfit. He's wearing
Yes,
the same
yes.
spandex, red, white, and blue, no shirt, suspenders, right? And a cowboy
Yeah.
hat, and he's walking around Bourbon Street. And he was with a woman in the picture that you sent
Mhm.
me, and I swear it was the same woman that he auditioned with, but you said it's
It
not.
wasn't. No, he's just got his type of outfit and his type of woman, I think. But
I
it was
mean, he looked
crazy.
really, really similar.
But maybe
Same
it was across the street, but I don't think that it was her. It could
that
have, possibly.
that's
I don't
funny. That is funny. Plus, we met Darcy, right? And
know. Darla. Yep.
Darla, excuse me, Darla, and she was on the show. She was one of our first guests, and we met her on the Big Deal as well,
Yep.
and she's got an amazing story,
Mhm.
where she was at the shooting that happened over, next to the casino at the Country and Western concert,
Yeah.
and pickleball really helped her recover, and kinda get back out and in life and meeting people again because it really obviously was pretty traumatic.
Right, right. And I think through our interviews too, that's such a common thread that we've seen with a lot of our guests is that it's helped them beyond just like picking up another sport. Like it's helped them mentally and socially. And, that's the reason why we do this.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about giving back to the community. I mean, that's what we wanted to do, right? There's a
Hmm.
whole bunch of different podcasts out there. Some of them are about technique, and some of them about talking about the pro game. Some of them talk about equipment, and ours is kind of like for the everyday player, and like just talk about the game and how can we give back to the community, the different personalities within the community.
Hmm.
It's just amazing the types of people and the different people we've met over the past 2 years. And then there's just different opportunities have popped up as well too. Like we're getting
Yes.
invited to different places, business opportunities, partnerships, collaborations, ambassadorships, right? There's so many things that have changed over the past 2 years in my life and yours. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so thankful for everything and for also your guidance too, because you already had the experience of doing a podcast and knowing how it works and everything. And so you've kind of taken me under your wing a little bit and shown me the ropes. So I'm super appreciative of everything and every single one of our guests that we've had. And I'm super excited to see what the next year has in
Yeah.
store for us.
Well, speaking of the next year, 2 different guests, I'm not gonna mention who they are because I don't wanna put the cart before the horse, but 2 different guests that we've had on our show, were basically I don't know, it was kind of like, I wanna do a podcast now. So 2 different guests have reached out to me, behind the scenes and said, "I wanna do a podcast also, can you kinda give me some advice?" So, just in the past month, I've talked to 2 different guests that are gonna be starting a podcast in 2025. So, we'll be announcing that as well and probably having them back on.
Yay, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that we can kind of like help other people out. And I'm excited to hear more about that too and kind of see what their angle is. Like you said, we're giving back to the community. Some people are out there promoting like coaching and technique. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, one of them is podcast or one of them is pickleball related, and one of them isn't. One of them is completely
Oh,
separate from pickleball, yes.
okay.
So we'll be doing some announcements probably early in 2025 about that.
Yeah, a little teaser for y'all.
Mhm. What's the biggest thing that pickleball has changed your life? How has it changed your life in the past 2 years?
I think that it's just kind of given me a different perspective on people's lives. Like, when you go to a sport and you're playing recreationally, you show up and you meet them on the court, and then that's kind of it. You don't really get into it. You don't really know why they're out there participating or how they're also benefiting from it. But I think that pickleball and also doing the podcast, it kind of creates an environment for deeper conversations and more of the social connection. And before that, I didn't really have it, even though I had been
Mm.
involved in sports like softball, like adult league softball and stuff like that. It never really got beneath the surface of just showing up like, oh, hey, how's it going? And then
Yeah.
leaving. But with pickleball, you have those conversations on the side of the court, or we invite them onto the show and kind of find out more about them. And so it's definitely helped grow my social network, but also kind of show me a different perspective on the whys of people and why they're out there playing.
It is interesting that we usually have conversations with our guests either before and after the show, and there's a lot of stuff that we learn about them that didn't come out during the show, more personal
Hmm.
things. And it is really, really fascinating to learn all the different backstories that people have, and the why they're into it, why it means so much to them. And it's similar for a lot of people, but it's very different
Yeah.
for most people as well. It just means something different for them, and it's really nice. And I appreciate the fact that they let us into their lives in that way.
Yeah. What about for yourself? How has pickleball changed your life? Oh, the past 2 years.
The past two
Past
years,
2 years.
I would agree with you. It's the social aspect. I think, going into doing the show 2 years ago was what, 2022. So we are kind of just coming out of COVID. So from 2020 to 2022, you know, I was kind of isolated. I
Mhm.
was so social and, doing sports, but just social in general before COVID happened. And then with my business, we kind of had to go more remote. So I didn't go into the office after 2020. And I wasn't playing my softball, wasn't playing all the different sports that I was playing very much. So it just gave me a social outlet. And I tell people this is I've made more friends in the past 2 years playing pickleball than probably the previous 20 years in all walks of life, right? And whether it's work, whether it's, whatever. Like I had not met and made this many relationships and true friendships over the
Right.
past 2 years versus the previous 20. It's crazy. I love it. It means so
Yeah.
much to me. The game has given me so much. And if I can give a little bit back, then I'm going to do my best.
Yep. Well, we're here trying.
We are, we are. Today we have a kind of an interesting guest.
Yeah.
We have Tom Fortner. Tom had a really fascinating adventure. He sailed up and down the East Coast, on a sailboat, playing pickleball at different stops wherever he kind of went, and he planned his whole trip up and down the East Coast around pickleball. So, we
How
can't
fun.
wait. I know, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
a neat little bucket list thing to do. So we're gonna find out more from Tom here in a second, and then we'll give everybody an opportunity right now to please subscribe because it really means a lot to our show. It helps us keep going, find fantastic guests, and maybe even an alcoholic sponsor one of these days. We're still looking for you. If you're
Come
listening
on.
right now, yes. So for all of you listening, we do appreciate if you can go on to our Instagram, Facebook. It is Third Shot Podcast. If you go to our website, like Bridgie says, we got a lot of fun things at thirdshotpodcast.com. Go on to X, Third Shot Pod, and find us on YouTube so you can see our smiling faces as we meet our guests coming up. Let's bring on Tom. Welcome, Tom, to Third Shot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tom, you've had quite the adventure, and we're going to get into it. But before we hear your story, we're going to do a quick little toast to you and your sailing adventures.
Cheers.
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 Cheers. Happy pickleball. Happy sailing.
Mm, that away.
Yeah, so tell us and the listeners, how did you get into pickleball as well as sailing? Did they start at the same time, or did you pick one up after the other?
Yeah, I started sailing in 2010. I went to sailing schools in Seattle, but I really didn't sail very much for the next 10 years, but I always wanted to. It was just this thing that I just wouldn't let go of me. Like I just had to do it. I don't know why I had to do it because I didn't know anything about it, but I just had to do it. And then I finally came to Florida in 2020-ish. I decided that I thought I was too old to take it up, and that's what kept me from doing it for a little while. But I saw this guy. He was 78 years old, and he was sailing by himself from Los Angeles to Hawaii and back. And I thought, well, if
Whoa.
this guy can do this at 78, I
Yeah.
was 63. I'm like, okay, I gotta make this happen. So I bought a boat, and I just went into the deep end of the pool right away. Started going offshore. Had some work done on the boat. Then I went to Maine, came back. Then I went back to work for a year, and then in 2023, I was done with work and I started sailing again a lot. But the problem I had with sailing is that you don't get any exercise really. It's very sedate. You set your sails up and then hopefully you can just ride them for a long ways. So you don't really do anything. And so I would get out of shape and lazy and have you ever heard of the term drunken sailor? Well, there's a reason for that. We can tend to drink a lot. So that was happening. So I was in I think 2023, a buddy of mine, a dear friend of mine from Montana, Josh Pierce, joined me in the Bahamas, and we went sailing. We sailed together for 3 weeks, and at the end of the trip, he said, you know what? You have got to get in shape, and you have got to quit drinking so much, and you've got to start playing the piano again. And I said, okay. So we sailed back to Florida together, and before he left, we bought a keyboard, and I told him, okay, I'll stop drinking and I'll get to the fitness center, which I detest. I can't stand fitness centers. It's like the most boring thing in the world to me. But this friend of mine, but I signed up. I actually went down and found a fitness center near the boat, and I signed up, and I was dreading it. But this guy, this friend of mine, who was also a sailor friend, invited me to go play pickleball, and I didn't know anything about it. I just heard it was an old man's sport. He said, well, yeah, guess what? You fit the bill. So we went, and I was immediately hooked. Like, he was talking about going once a week, and I said, well, maybe 2 or 3 times. And then now I'm up to, I very quickly went to playing every single day.
Wow.
And for 4 hours a day. And yes, I did quit drinking for a while, and I lost 30 pounds, and I was loving life. Everything was working. And so I was practicing the piano, although it's too hard. I know I've abandoned the piano, but it's too hard. So I've honored all my promises to my buddy, and then that's kind of how I started pickleball and sailing.
So what made you decide to do this adventure where you are gonna, well, tell everybody what you did, first of all, and what made you
Yeah.
decide to do this?
Well, like I said, the problem with sailing is that you don't get any exercise, and then you're bored a lot of times. It's boring, and boredom leads to eating and drinking. And the other thing that's true about sailing is that when you get done with a long, hard passage, you want a cocktail. Like, you just want to wind down and have a cocktail, because there's an element of anxiety that goes along with sail. Even though you could have the most beautiful sail in the world, you still have this at least I do have this anxiety. It's not seriously, but you when you set down the anchor, you want a cocktail. Anyway, if I had to choose between sailing and pickleball, I would take pickleball, because I prefer I love the game for one, and secondly, I prefer to be fit. That's what gives me that fitness without being. It's not arduous. It's like going to the fitness center. I'd be wanting to jump out of my skin every time I went. But with pickleball, I'm like, yeah, let's go. So anyway, I had friends that were encouraging me to go sailing, to continue to use my boat. And I know that I needed to do it because at my age, you don't have many years left to be able to do this. So I got to get them in while I can. So then I started looking at pickleball facilities up the coast and all the way up the coast. And I just thought, well, if I can go up a ways and anchor and then get a few days of pickleball in, and then go up in ways and anchor and get a few days of pickleball in, that'll be great. I'll have best of both worlds. And that's what I did. And it worked out so great. I ended up playing in 26 different locations, I think it was. I think I sent you guys locations I
Yeah.
played in. Yeah. Yeah, it was great. It was,
You
yeah.
went like as far north as Maine?
Yeah, went up, yeah.
All the way from
And
Florida up to Maine and back down and played in 22 different spots?
I think it was 26
26
locations.
different locations. What
Yeah.
stood out? Which location or a couple locations that really stood out to you?
Well, I'll kind of do this chronologically. First was New Bern. I went to New Bern and I got hooked up with this guy Clay, who is also a sailor, and this couple, Peter and Kristen, who are sailors and pickleball players. And I just had the best time in New Bern. Clay, who was local, he kind of dialed us all in to this group, and we ended up playing together for a week or more, I think. And then he would pick me up at the dock every day. I'd take my dinghy into the public dock. He'd pick me up, take me to the pickleball course, and then drop me back off. And then we would do lunch or dinner together, and it became a thing. And Peter and Kristen, we have continued to run across each other's paths and played pickleball. Also, they also were doing the same thing, although they were just they were a few months behind me getting their boat ready. So anyway, so New Bern was great, and it was only my second location, and it was good because it was a good experience. And then it was kind of like I played some places on the way north when I was going up to the Chesapeake and in the Chesapeake, and it wasn't very good at all. But then I ended up going sailing from and I had a very good friend of mine that was sailing with me, Scott. And Scott sailed with me up to Newport, Rhode Island. And I got into some pickleball games in Newport, and that was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. And then I went to Martha's Vineyard. I had a wonderful time in Martha's Vineyard, not just because of the pickleball, but because there was a guy there named Eric and a gal named Debbie, and they were so welcoming and inviting, and just made me a part of the family while I was there. It was fantastic. In fact, I'm hoping Eric comes down to visit.
How long do you typically stay at each place, each stop?
It depends on how much I like it.
Really? You don't even know. Well, when you dock, you go, okay, it could be a day, it could be a week.
Exactly. If it's not good, I'm out of there. So, and assuming the wins, I'm not religious about it, but I really don't like to motor. I like to sail. And so I try to always pick windows where I can sail where I want to go rather than use my engine. So those two factors determine how long I would stay someplace. So anyway, Martha's Vineyard was great. We had Eric. This is how nice people are. And this is what I love about pickleball being more than all of the rest of my life. I played golf. I was an avid golfer. But more than golf, I find pickleball to be really social. And this guy, Eric, in Martha's Vineyard invited me over to his house for dinner. I'm like, well, I'd love to, but I don't have a way of getting there. He goes, no problem. I'll pick you up, drop you off. It was 20 minutes each way. So he had to do that twice to get me to have dinner with his family. And it was just so wonderful. And then they made the mistake of telling me they were doing a clam bake the next day. And so I invited myself. Not only they actually dug the clams that morning themselves.
Whoa.
And, yeah. And we had, so I went to his house again the second time for dinner next day. But I moved my boat closer to where he was, so it wasn't so much of a thing. So then I left there and I went to Debbie that I met, this gal Debbie, who was also a single-handed sailor. She sailed with me up to Boston, and we stopped in Cape Cod, Wellfleet and P-Town, and I played there. It was okay, but not great. So I left there. We went to Boston. Boston was tough. There's no pickleball in Boston. And then I ended up going, and I sailed up to Maine, where I had my next really great pickleball experience in Booth Bay Harbor. Do you have any questions? Should I keep going here? I'm kind of motoring off like crazy.
No, what happened? Yeah, what happened up in Maine?
So I met this guy. I went to this YMCA that had indoor pickleball courts, and that was good. There were some good players, and we had a good time. But there was a guy named Alan who had built two private courts of his own, and he had a small group of people that he would invite to come play on his course every single day. And it started at 9 a.m. and ended at noon. And I got plugged into that group. So Alan, I told Alan, I said, well, how far out of town is it? He goes, 5 miles. I said, I don't have a way of getting there. He goes, I'll pick you up and drop you off every day. So he did every day.
That's so nice.
And it was so nice. And I probably played, I kept going in and out of Booth Bay. So we played together a lot before the end of the summer. So that was a great experience. And then I was sailing, I was leaving Maine to go down to Boston, and the sail wasn't going as well as the winds were kind of soft, and wasn't putting many miles on very quickly. So anyway, I ducked into where was it? No. New Hampshire. Oh gosh, so many places.
I know.
Portsmouth.
That's the crazy thing about your adventures. Like you
Yeah.
made so many different stops. I'm sure it was probably tough to kind of keep track. But you did a journal, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So
So
anyway,
what did you do in your journal each day? Like I was just curious, like what, did you do it daily? Did you do it weekly? Just whenever?
Yeah, just whenever. Yeah, I took
Okay.
pictures, and the photos helped bring back memories enough to be able to write about it. And then I felt like it was too repetitive and boring, so I quit doing it. Anyway, I went into Portsmouth. I got to tell you about Portsmouth. I ducked in there. I wasn't planning to stop there whatsoever. No one's ever told me anything about Portsmouth that was all that glowing. I put in had a great anchorage. The next day, I take my dock to my dinghy to the dinghy dock. The bike ride to the courts was less than 5 minutes. Portsmouth is a wonderful little town. I think they had 16 brand new courts there, and what a great community. And I mean, immediately, the very first day that I was there, the first minute of the first day, I got hooked up with some great play, and it was just extraordinary. I can't wait to go back.
And that's in New Hampshire, correct?
Yeah, great time.
Okay.
What a wonderful experience.
So I'm curious. You met so many generous and wonderful people along the way. Do you think that that's because you have the pickleball in common, or have you, throughout other sailing adventures, have you also found that people are just as welcoming and helpful as what you found on your adventure with pickleball?
Well, the sailing community is very tight. Like sailors take care of sailors. There's no question about it. We all need each other because you get in trouble or you need, we all need each other. So sailing community is tight, but you don't really, unless you just happen to run into other sailors, it's not like you have a gathering place. Sometimes that happens, but rarely. We have a gathering place where everybody gets together. With pickleball, you get together. And so by the very nature of pickleball, you have this connection. And of course, people were fascinated with my story, and they thought everybody thought it was cool, and it is unique.
It is.
So people are just kind.
I love that.
Bridgie and I have asked other people that have traveled around and played pickleball. We had one guy that set the world record. He played in 48 cities in 48 days in 48 states.
He was a pilot.
He did it by plane. But we ask everybody that does this travel and plays pickleball everywhere, do you notice a difference in players or styles in the different areas of the country? And I'm curious.
No question about it.
Oh, no question. Okay, tell us about that.
No question about it. Yeah. So the further north I went, of course, now this is all because they don't have 12 months of the year that they can be at it, right? They get their summer window, and a lot of times there's, in the summer it's too hot some places, but their windows to play are shorter. So what I found is the further north I went, the less drops, resets, and dinking that went on. It was more like a bang game. And, I call it hit and hope. You hit the ball and hope it doesn't come back, but there's less strategic soft shots that are being played and, bringing the back game down. Other than that, where the exception to that is if you go someplace like Booth Bay, where there was so many people there that were that's their summer home and their winter home, they also play pickleball. So, they might have had a place in wherever down south in the wintertime. And then, like at Booth Bay, there were players in Booth Bay that knew how to hit drops and resets and the whole thing.
So at what point, as you're sailing down the coast, do you realize play's getting more strategic, more soft play, better players? At what state do you think you're in when you started seeing it improve?
So Annapolis was a smidgen of it. It's like I noticed a slight improvement in Annapolis, but Hilton Head is where I was like, okay, here we are. We're back to tough pickleball. Yeah, there are some good players at Hilton Head. Yeah.
That's funny. I'd like to see it as a map and color the states that are the hit and hopers, and then you've got the dinkers and the soft play, just to visualize.
Yeah.
So we've been focusing on the pickleball, but I'm curious on the sailing. Is there any times when you're at sea sailing that you kind of got into a tough situation?
I no. The answer is no. It's this is the very first time I've ever sailed where I had Chamber of Commerce sales every single time I went out. It was unbelievable. I didn't even know that was possible. All the way up to Maine, I'm having all these great sales. And if you guys aren't sailors, so I won't get into what that's all about. But basically calm seas or relatively calm seas and good winds and just easy sailing. And then when I got to Maine, I got worried because I was like, okay, this is not normal, and there's going to be a price to pay for this. So, and I'm going south, but again, all the way south. I had one afternoon. Me and I had a buddy that met me up in Boston, and we left Falmouth, right outside of Cape Cod Canal, and we left Falmouth and we were on our way to Block Island, and the winds kicked up, and I mean it was ugly for about 2 or 3 hours. We ducked in and put out our anchor, and that was it. But I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was just that was the only time out of all the miles I put on that was not comfortable.
Wow,
Do
you
you
got
fish?
very fortunate.
You fish while you're sailing too?
No, I did one time, but I found that trying to manage the boat and manage the fish is not
Too
it
tough.
just something's gonna give you. Yeah.
But it sounds like you had people join you. Were they sailing with you? So like on this, actually, how long were you actually at sea going up and down doing this adventure? And what percentage of that time did you actually have a friend join you?
Of all the time I was out, I had friends on board for about a third to half of the time,
Oh, that's
but
nice.
only
You had some
one,
company.
yeah, company, but only two people that I had. Scott, who's I met sailing. He joined me for 3 weeks. I can't tell you. Scott and I are like brothers from different mothers, but he and I sailed together for 3 weeks. It was wonderful because he knew what to do, and he's even more anal and detail oriented than I am. So I'm like, I'll throw the sails up, but then he goes out and tweaks them and makes them and trims them properly, and he's very cautious. He's just a great guy. And then Randy and his wife joined me, and they experienced sailors, so they had that for 5 days. Other than that, everybody that I had on board had never been on a boat. They're not really, if they're more work than they are help. It's true. I mean, it is true. But it's not to be critical. I mean, it's on a boat. People just don't know, boat life it's very different.
Yeah, I can
So
only imagine. So how long was the entire trip that you were out sailing?
7 months.
7 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, I left
Wow.
the first week of April and I got back first week in November.
Wow. How
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, it's long. I was glad to get back, and it's nice to be back in my routine here in Daytona Beach.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
I'm gonna go
think
again
you would
next
ever
year.
do it again?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it again next year.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's nice though, because now I know where to go and where not to go for pickleball.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to spend a whole lot more time in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, places like that.
Well, you probably made so many friends on this trip. New friends.
Yeah, I mean, acquaintances, right now if you meet somebody one time, they're acquaintances. If you go back a second time and then you hang with them again, then they become friends, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But yes, I do. A lot of great people.
That's great. Well, we can't wait to hear about your next adventure. We're going to do another toast to you, Tom, and your sailing adventures.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you for sharing your story.
It is very unique. We've had so many different guests.
Yeah.
Brigie and I were talking that we're approaching our 100th episode. So we've talked to a lot of different people over the past 2 years about their pickleball story and their journey. You have a very unique one, doing it on the boat and sailing up and down the East Coast. So really, thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
My pleasure. Hopefully
And we got to thank
enjoyed it.
we got to thank Eric over at L Cubed Lifestyle for introducing us. I guess he's a good friend of yours.
Yes. Yeah.
And you guys play pickleball together.
Well, he's far better than I am. But yeah, I always enjoy when I get the opportunity. But he's a really good player.
He is, and a really good person. Like Eric's
Yes.
just the best.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on with us, Tom. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yep, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
And for all of you listening, thank you for joining us at Third Shot, where Brigie and I will continue to share our pickleball journey real special thanks to Tom Fortner for sharing his true journey up and down the East Coast on a sailboat, stopping at 26 different stops and playing pickleball all over the East Coast. So I really appreciate Tom. And as I always mention, you can support this show by subscribing. We promise to have more amazing guests and great stories, just like Tom just shared with us in future episodes. So let's continue to share our enjoyment of the game and grow this pickleball community together. See you next time on Third Shot Podcast.